I'm going to show you why the design thinking market is growing and what you can do to make the most of it in this episode. So listen up. Welcome to the Tech for Non-Techies podcast. I'm your host, tech entrepreneur, executive coach, and Chicago Booth MBA, Sophia Matveeva. My aim here is to help you have a great career in the digital age. In a time when even your coffee shop has an app, you simply have to speak tech. On this podcast, I share core technology concepts, help you relate them to business outcomes, and most importantly, share practical advice on what you can do to become a digital leader today. If you want to have a great career in the digital age, this podcast is for you. Hello, smart people. How are you today? It is really cold in London right now, but it is still a wonderful cultural capital, so I'm not going to complain about it. Last week, I went to the Royal Opera House to watch The Nutcracker, so that's the ballet by Tchaikovsky. And I love the ballet, and the production I went to see was just sublime. You know, when your mind goes quiet and then you just feel all of your senses lighting up? It was like that. And you know what? Here's a fascinating fact. When an orchestra accompanies the ballet, the orchestra conductor has to make sure that the music coincides with the dancer's movements perfectly. So, for example, you know that really famous Sugar Plum Fairy music? Well, you can Google it and I'm sure you'll remember it. So when the Sugar Plum Fairy pirouettes, which basically means that she turns on the points of her feet, when she does that, the conductor has to make sure that the music is perfectly aligned with her movements. So that's why the celesta, and that's the instrument that makes that bell sound from her famous dance, that's why that instrument rings exactly when the ballerina turns. And so as an audience member, what you see is that you see the ballerina and the music moving together as one. But in reality, this is the work of one dancer and 62 musicians connected by one conductor. And if you think about it, the dancer can't see the orchestra and the orchestra can't see the dancer. And yet the conductor basically makes sure that they're completely aligned. So the conductor is both the leader of the orchestra and the glue that holds the music and the dancers together. And so honestly, when I found this out, I thought, oh my God, this job is really hard, way harder than what I'm doing. And a great conductor is an absolutely extraordinary leader. And this is something that I want you to pay attention to for your career aims. Because the conductor, they're not the best violin player, they are not a ballet dancer, and they have not written the music. Instead, their job is to bring the best out of the people that they're working with and to connect disparate factions and to make the composer's vision come alive. So when you think of this year, when you think of the year ahead, if your aim is to be a leader, then take inspiration from conductors, because a great conductor is not going to worry about the fact that they're not the best violinist, because that is not their job. They're also not trying to become a ballet dancer. They know that their job is to lead and to connect. So for this, they need to know about what each individual does. So they need to understand what the ballerina is going to do. They need to have an understanding of choreography, but they're not attempting to become a choreographer themselves, because honestly, it would be completely impossible to do all of those jobs. And this is obviously connected to digital leadership in general, but also it's connected to what I want to teach you specifically today. And that's the increasingly important role of designers, which I expect is going to grow and grow and grow in 2024. As you will see in this episode and in the next episode, designers, like conductors and like CEOs, they have to work with a very diverse set of people, from manufacturers and engineers to marketers and strategists, in order to make something that people are going to pay for and love. So my last prediction for 2024 in this mini-series is that the importance of designers and design thinking is just going to carry on increasing this year. I have seen research that says that the design thinking market is set to grow by 7.38% by 2028, which is way above forecast economic growth for the US and certainly for the UK. But you don't have to be a designer or even work with a designer in order to make the most of this upward trend. So I'm going to show you why the design thinking market is growing and what you can do to make the most of it
in this episode. So listen up. And by the way, this market prediction comes from a market research study that I've linked in the show notes. So you can go have a look at that. And for context, the latest US growth figures, the latest prediction is that the US is going to grow by 1.5% next year. And that's from the Congressional Budget Office. And, economists predicted a recession last year, which thankfully did not happen. So I don't really know if we can trust this 1.5% prediction today. But, my dear smart person, let us not get stuck on minutiae. The main point here is that the design thinking market is poised to grow about 5 times the US economy. And even if the figures are wrong, either for the design thinking market or for the US, even if it's only going to grow 3 times the world's largest economy, honestly, it is still worth investigating because the design thinking market is set to perform way above the average opportunity. So let's capture this opportunity so you can have an exciting and lucrative year. In the first part of this episode, I'm going to tell you what the design thinking sector is and explain why it's growing. So you're going to get that bigger context. And then in the second part of this episode, I'm going to tell you how you can make the most of this growth as a corporate leader, as an innovator, as a strategic advisor, so if you're a lawyer or a banker, and obviously as an investor. And speaking of designers, this is a class reminder. Have you booked your place at Design for Growth yet? It is happening in just 10 days after this episode comes out on the 28th of January. And I highly recommend you join us. Design for Growth is a workshop that consists of 2 main parts. First, you will learn design thinking principles, which will be covered by me and a very cool lead designer. And then in the second part, we will use these principles to create a plan of action for your best year yet. Yes, 2024. Why not? And you can use the Design for Growth program to create a new product, to launch a grower venture, and to transform your career. And I've used design thinking for all 3, and I can tell you that it works. And there's also a bunch of bonus resources, which are all in the program description at techfunontechies.co/events and in the show notes. And the workshop is going to be in a very small group, so everybody can get feedback and coaching and make genuine new connections. So make sure to get your space before they are gone. And now let's learn about the design thinking market. So first of all, let's begin with defining terms. What is the design thinking market? Market participants here are agencies and freelancers that create products, brands, and strategies. These are design and innovation consultancies like IDEO and Frog Design, and these are super famous, so you might have heard of them before. And the sector also includes companies that specialize in software design, so UX and UI designers, and some of whom you've heard on this podcast. And what I think is interesting and slightly unnerving is that now the design thinking market also includes large traditional strategy consultancies like McKinsey and Accenture. And there are 2 main reasons why this market is growing, and I'm going to show you both here. One of the reasons for the design thinking market growth is that strategy consultancies have been getting into design and design agencies have been getting into strategy. So there's been this kind of blending, merging thing going on. McKinsey, for example, they've been writing articles about design thinking and advising CEOs on how to make the most of their design talent in the last few years. And the big consultancies have actually been getting into the design thinking market for ages. In fact, I mentioned Frog Design, one of the super famous design companies. It was started, I think, in the 60s, and now it's owned by Capgemini, one of the big consultancies. Also, on the design agency side, design agencies have actually been becoming more like strategy consultancy. So they're not only now talking about brand, they're not only making products. So for example, IDEO, the other legendary design firm I mentioned, they've got their own strategy division. So there is this blend now, and I don't think it's a bad thing, but my dear smart listeners, as an aside, for those of you who hire McKinsey or Bain or BCG, just remember that these consultancies certainly have their merits and they do employ clever people, but if you need help with design thinking and innovation, my advice is that you hire people who have actually designed new products. There are plenty of good people out there for that. So get the right experience for the problem that you need to solve. Okay, so why is there now this blend of consultancy and design? Well, if you're a long-time listener, you will remember, it's probably going to be tattooed in your brain, that a product is always a solution to a problem. And what does this mean? So, for example, I use Uber because I want to go home from a party and I want the convenience and safety of being picked up at an event and being dropped off at my door. At no point do I think, oh my God, today I'm going to use a ride-hailing app. No, I think about my problem and Uber is a solution. And remember, it's not just about technology. Every product is a solution to a problem. A shareholders agreement for a startup is a product that solves the problem of who owns what and who gets to make important decisions, like hiring expensive people, for example. An investment fund solves the problem of how to use money to make more money. A glass solves the problem of how to quench your thirst in a simple and elegant way and not have to put your face in a plate. You get my point? So if you really get to know the problem that you're solving for somebody, then you can build a strategy and a business around it. So let's go back to ride-hailing. If you're building a ride-hailing app, you would need to get to know what the drivers need and how to attract them. You would need to understand what riders are looking for and how to make them feel safe. You would also need to be aware of local regulation because that's probably going to have to be in the app somehow. You'll also have to test pricing models. So do you see how deep your experience and knowledge of that market is going to have to be just to design a great app that people keep on using? So if you're going to go and get all of that knowledge anyway, why would you just stop at making the product? Why not go more upstream and make more money by advising on the innovation strategy in the first place and then on advising on the go-to market strategy after the product's made? I mean, that's what I would do. So it totally makes sense that design agencies are going into the strategy world. And earlier on in this episode, I also said that designers have a similar skill set to CEOs because they have to deal with so many competing demands. And in my experience, in the corporate world, product managers and designers have the most similar skill sets to the CEO because they have the most holistic views, but, they just have less power. Because think about what you need to do to get something made. You have to work with manufacturers. You have to work with the marketing team to price and promote the product. You have to work with the sales team to get their feedback on what the market wants. And you also have to deal with the finance department who's going to be constantly annoyed with you because they're thinking, okay, you're spending all of this money. When are we going to get a return? And so you're also going to be operating within severe budget constraints and time constraints, always. And so all of these different factions, like the finance people and the sales people and the marketing people, they all have different goals and they only want you as a designer, as a CEO or as a product manager. They basically want you to listen to them and they think all the other ones are wrong. So most jobs do not have that level of variety and most jobs don't have that level of competing demands apart from basically the top job, which is why I always tell you, if you want to be a successful CEO or if you want to be close to a successful CEO, for example, by being their strategic advisor or by being in the boardroom, then learning how designers think is a really, really smart idea. So it's not just about making stuff, it's about that skill set. Okay, so one of the reasons why the design thinking market is growing is because of this blending of design agencies and consultancies. Another reason for this projected uplift in the design thinking sector is actually because design thinking can be applied for two main areas of business: software and services. And software and services are really, really good places to be right now and probably for the foreseeable. My dear smart listeners, you already know that design in tech is a thing and that if you have an idea for an app, the first thing you need to do is to work with designers, not developers. And think about this. What is the outlook for the software sector in general? Well, it's pretty rosy globally. Last week I told you that a McKinsey survey of the top CEOs said that AI and digital transformation will remain top of the agenda for this year. So if you work in anything to do with software, you can expect good things. And obviously this extends to designers. And professional services are also expected to do rather well. So Statista expects 5% growth. So for my dear listeners who are in consulting, if you want to be in the faster growing bit of consulting, design thinking and innovation, that's the place for you to investigate and to make sure that you are ready and to make sure that you can really add value there. Basically, listen to every single Tech for Non-Techies episode and take the Tech for Non-Techies courses because they'll really help you succeed in digital innovation. And all of the information about what's available is on the Tech for Non-Techies website. Now that we know what the design thinking sector is, and now that we understand why it's set to grow, let's focus on what you can do to benefit from this growth. Because I don't just want you to know that there's going to be a bonanza, I want you to be part of it. Well, so first of all, and this one might be obvious, you do have to learn what design thinking is. This is a growing market, and design thinking is highly relevant to technology and innovation. And think about this. Why is a sector growing? Well, clearly it's growing because somebody is hiring all of these expensive consultancies and design agencies, right? And who hires them? Who makes that hiring decision? Well, that's the C-suite, the CEO, the head of strategy, the people who hold the budgets and the power. If your company board is not doing this, honestly, then your competitors is. So to understand how the leadership thinks, so you can join them and then so you can lead them, learn design thinking. And there are plenty of episodes on this podcast that will help you. So literally just go back and have a listen to anything with design in the title. So the first thing to do is learn the theory of what design thinking is. And then step 2 is apply this theory to something. Yes, I'm inviting you to listen to the podcast. But, my dear smart person, do not just listen to podcasts and do not just read books. Don't just consume, create. That's what gets you to where you want to go. If you are listening to this episode to achieve an aim, like having a great career, creating a new product, or building a really successful venture, then use what you've learned about design thinking to get there. Take the design thinking frameworks and apply them to your goals. And the best way to do that is to join the Design for Growth program, where we're going to work on your 2024 aims. We've got a really wide range of participants. It's a small group, but a very diverse group. So we've got people coming from academia, we've got startup CEOs, we've got consultants, we've got financiers. And all of these people want different things from this year. And we know that to go after any ambitious goal, you're going to have to pivot sometimes, and sometimes you're just going to have to persevere. So you need to know when to stop and when to keep going. And this is a really key innovator and designer skill set. And this is what we're going to cover in the workshop on the 28th of January. So come and join. And the link is in the show notes. Or just go to techfornontechies.co/events. And my third tip for you, after you have learned the theory of design thinking and applied it to something that you really want, the third thing to do is to then take a step further. The design thinking frameworks you will learn in a book is not everything that a designer would do because, it is a career and there is no way that a career can just be distilled into 5 steps because there's just so much more. And this is where McKinsey goes wrong in their explanations of design thinking. And to be fair to them, they're not designers. This is why I told you that if you really do want a design thinker, hire somebody who at least used to be a designer or at least has been an innovator and invented new things. So McKinsey, they do love a framework, but designers have to create something out of chaos. And a 5-step system or a framework, well, it's not enough to work in chaos. And you're going to learn more about what this means in practice in next week's episode, because we are going to hear from a lead designer in a company who has some thoughts on design thinking. She is actually also my co-presenter in the Design for Growth workshop. So we're going to teach you design thinking, but we're also going to take you beyond that. So definitely sign up for Design for Growth if you can, and whatever you decide to do, definitely tune in next week to understand where design thinking is wonderful, but also really what designers do in general and how that skill set is going to apply to you as a digital leader in 2024. It's a great, insightful episode and you're going to learn a lot. Okay, now let's sum up what we covered today. Number 1, the design thinking sector is set to grow way above the US economy. So get on board. Number 2, design agencies like IDEO have been getting into strategy, and strategy consultancies like McKinsey have been getting into design. And this is one of the reasons for growth in the sector. Number 3, the design thinking sector serves 2 main parts: services and software. The software innovation market especially is a gift that will keep on giving for years and years to come because, listen, every major corporate is going through digital transformation. And I don't know about you, but I'm not going to stop shopping on Amazon anytime soon. Okay, now number 4, last point. For you to benefit from this trend, do these 3 things. First, learn what design thinking is. Second, apply design thinking to something you want in your life. And then third, learn why design thinking is useful, but understand that it is not the only thing that designers do. To be a true innovator and to be a real creator, you need more than a 5-step process, because basically you need to learn to think differently and to understand how to make competing demands come together in one beautiful thing. All right, well, we've covered a lot today. You may have to listen to this again and take notes. Isn't it wonderful? You're getting all of this free, high-quality education. Well, today's lesson is the last of this predictions mini-series. And my dear smart listener, if you enjoy this episode, then I would love for you to let me know. Your ratings and reviews really, really do make my day. So take out your phone and give this podcast a rating and a review. So if you're on Apple, if you're on Spotify, it literally takes like 30 seconds and just the tap of a thumb to leave a star rating. And if you want to go above and beyond, which I really do encourage, then I would love a note too. And you can do that very easily on Apple. And on that note, thank you so much for being with me today. I love the time that we get to spend together. And on this note, I wish you a wonderful day. And I will be back in your delightful smart ears next week. Ciao.